Okay, can you believe that we are at the end of our How to Teach English for Specific Purposes course? I cannot believe it. It's been kind of a dream of mine to put together a course like this for a couple of years, and I cannot believe we're at the end of it. So here we are. Here we are. We're at the end. We're ready for our final project. I don't usually have final projects in classes, but this one really calls for one because to truly scaffold for you, that means that I've been supporting you with little pieces along the way, giving you lots of evidence of the kinds of resources you can look at and the kinds of places you can look for needs analysis, even when besides people. And the kinds of what courses can look like and syllabi and what textbooks can look like, that kind of thing. It's really time for you to try it on your own. And the nice thing is this is a course, and so you have the safety of knowing that the bumpers are up and your bowling ball can't go entirely wild. So it's just us. To take a look at your curriculum, although a few of you are actually applying it in the real world with the choices that you made. So, first thing you have to do is, if you haven't already, you need to let me know what your topic is. So, there are 4 that we started with: hotels, restaurants, taxis, and tour guides. We also have a student who is working with a school counselor. We have a student creating a curriculum for a high school. And we've got a group of students creating a curriculum for Starbucks for their baristas that they hire from the refugee population. So there's some options there. And what I want to say is, now that we've gone this far in the course, I think that especially those 4, if you're thinking about preparing to teach ESP at some point, those 4 that I originally named, those are kind of the go-tos in a lot of countries. But if there's something else that calls to you, so for example, if you know of a certain business that actually could even use the assistance, I am open to whatever your idea is. So don't feel that you have to stick to those 4 that I originally said. Chances are that I will have no problem at all with a topic change if it's authentic for you. Okay? So that's the first thing you need to do, and that is due on March 8th. So once you get that in, what do you need to do next? You need to start your needs analysis. Now, do I require that you speak with people for this? No, I do not. But I do want you to gather as much information as is possible. And we've seen lots of examples of ways that you can gather information through public environments, for example, or even like the cop show, right? TV shows, that kind of thing. So be creative in thinking about how to get information. And if you do know someone, for example, if the brother of a friend is a taxi driver and that's the type of English you want to focus on, get to know that friend a little bit more and see if you can't, kind of use that information to help you make sense of what are the needs of taxi drivers in that situation. So what you will do, of course, is use that needs analysis that I introduced in our very first unit. I think it was week 2 or week 3 maybe. And you are going to figure out, and this is a syllabus template that I've made for you, very bare bones. It shouldn't be scary at all. And basically what I've done is I've come up with a place for you to record 4 language use situations. What is a language use situation? We've been talking about them this whole time. For example, with the ESP for police, one language use situation would be speaking in court. Another language use situation would be speaking on the radio. Another language use situation would be police talking with each other. Another language use situation would be filling out a report. So this is where you would record 4 language use situations, and you have this in Word document, so you can start your own document, or you're welcome just to use this template if it makes sense to you. And you come up with those 4 language use situations and use your needs analysis to begin to figure out, is it reading, writing, listening, speaking? Is it, what are the grammatical competencies that are needed? That kind of thing. So what needs to be taught? And of course, your objective for the course would be listed as well. So with this course, students will be able to. And so you'll need to figure that out on your own, what that be able to is. And then once you've figured out what that focus is, and what the language use situations are, and what those competencies are, and then you'll need to come up with, if it's a 10-week course, and you can play with that. Maybe you want to say, well, I've got 20 weeks with these students, whatever you want to say, but come up with what would you cover at that class meeting, and you need a description. I've just got a sentence starter there, but you need to talk about what are the kinds of activities that students can expect to carry out once they're in the classroom. And then, where would your assessment come from? What would you be assessing? So you have to think through that as well. And besides creating the syllabus, and that's where you'll start, you will also create a few lessons. And this is my own template. I've made it just based on what I found and what research says works best for English for specific purposes. So actually, as you look at this template, it should make sense, right? If you go back to our Unit 1, it should make sense. And so what you will be doing is coming up with an overview for your lesson. What kinds of things are there? What's the language situation focus? In other words, which one of these are you focusing on that day? And one thing to keep in mind, just so there's no confusion, the chances are that each language focus, situation focus, is going to have many, many days with the students, that it's not just a one-shot deal. Because maybe that one situation, maybe there's some vocabulary they need to master. Maybe there's even different parts to the language situation, like how a hotel worker needs to respond when there's a problem. Well, what does the beginning of that look like? The beginning of it looks like recognizing when someone's expressing that they need something. And then what does the middle of it look like? And what does the end of it look like? So there's lots of different ways to break it down. And so you can fully expect that you'll have a language situation focus for many, many class meetings, not just one. And it's got what your competencies are going to be covered. Notice how I'm holding you accountable for that, so that you don't fall into kind of one pitfall that I've seen with a lot of ESP classes, which is an entire focus on grammatical competency. So you don't want to go there. All right. And then one thing that you always want to make sure with ESP is that students are entirely clear on what the goal of the lesson is, and you want to make sure that they're told what the goal of the lesson is, and you'd have it written there, and you'd also want to give them some motivation. Why should they learn this? And one thing that's come up again and again in our course is you have to let them know how it connects to what their authentic needs are in the real world. And then, what are your activities? I just randomly put 3 kind of bars there, but you'll have to decide. We don't normally do the same activity for an entire class period, but it depends on your activity and it depends on how you want to break that up. And so some reminders there. Again, I'm holding you accountable for best practices. Lots of interaction, lots of language use, not language practice, language use. Lots of role plays probably. But we learned from Bonnie Gray in ESP for nurses that, well, it might depend on the students, right? How much we use role plays. it should look as much as possible in your classroom like the authentic situation that you're preparing your students for. And the competencies should support language use. So you should make sure that you're not teaching pronunciation just because you feel like teaching pronunciation, but you're teaching pronunciation because students need that information to do this today so that they can use it in their work tomorrow, right? And then assessment and closure. You always want to make sure that students are reminded of the goal of the lesson, and you want to make sure that they are assessed authentically at the end of each lesson and that they get some feedback. That could be really, really informal feedback, like, yes, you were able to ask 3 questions in your role play. Or it can be detailed, like, I noticed today that when you asked yes/no questions, you did a fantastic job, but when you asked WH questions, I couldn't understand you and your partner couldn't understand you as well. So it can look like whatever is appropriate for your students. So what do you need to do? You need to make sure that you've chosen your topic, that you've submitted your topic, and you need to start your needs analysis in whatever shape and form that can take. And even if you don't have anyone that you can personally speak to, you're smart, you're creative, you can figure this out. How can you get that information in other ways? And I think one thing you figured out by now, YouTube is our friend, right? we've gotten a lot of information off of YouTube. So that can be one place that you go. Okay, so that should get you started. Our focus is on this, and I will give you a few more updates, but get started on choosing your topic and starting your needs analysis. Good luck.